Hello everyone and welcome to NMB Global, where today we take this channel to the next step by bringing you along to experience the flights that we take from economy all the way through to first class. We'll be bringing you along to show you what it's like so that you can decide which flight is best for you. We'll also be showing you an array of lounges that we access through the flights that we take and also through being British Airways Silver members, which is the equivalent of the One World Sapphire. With a lot of trips coming up, we have decided to start sharing this journey starting from today, where we're flying from London Heathrow's Terminal 5 all the way through to Aberdeen on British Airways Club Europe on the Airbus A319 BA1322.
So here we are, driving into Heathrow Airport with a lovely shot of the plane coming into land there. This journey started straight after work on a Friday evening, around 2 hours prior to this moment. We got straight in the car and headed towards the airport, which happened to be right in the middle of Friday rush hour, which usually wouldn't be ideal. But honestly, the traffic wasn't that bad. Everything moved. There was no major standstills. The only time the traffic really built up was around 10 minutes before reaching the airport, which all things considered isn't that bad, and it has taken us longer to get there on different days. So when we fly from Heathrow Terminal 5, we do like to park at the pod park because we just find the convenience of being able to hop on the pod and going straight into the terminal is definitely worth the extra money that it can sometimes cost. You can keep that cost down by joining the Heathrow Rewards, which can often give you discounts and savings. We parked the car and headed over to Station B at the pod terminal, where we had a short wait, the pod pulled up, and then we got on ready to head to the airport. The pod is such a unique experience, as I believe it really is one of a kind, and Heathrow is the only airport that has a product that can take you directly from the car park into the terminal. To me, it definitely beats getting the bus. The pod journey only takes around 5 minutes, and whilst you're on board, you can become within touching distance of the threshold of runway 09 left, which means you get great views of the planes taking off and landing. So after a short time, we have reached the end of our pod journey. We have arrived at the car park level where we need to take the lift up to departures. A point to note is that it does feel a lot calmer at this time of the evening than during the daytime rush. It is around 6:30 p.m. here. Everything just feels a lot more relaxed. There's less people, shorter queues, and less of that frantic airport energy. When we get to the lift, we want to go up to floor 5, which is departures, where we will be able to check in and go through security. So here we are now walking through the entrance of Terminal 5. I absolutely love this entrance. The lighting just gives such a calming and relaxing feel, and it really gets you excited for the trip that's about to begin. Approaching the end of the entrance, the terminal opens up, and towards the left we can see the British Airways check-in area. Today we are flying Club Europe, but we are also British Airways Silver status, so we can use the Club Europe check-in. However, today we did decide to use the self-service Club Europe bag drop, as there was a small queue over towards the in-person check-in area, and we already had our boarding passes and we only had a small bag to check. There was no queue here, so we just got the tags, attached them to the bags and sent them on their way. After we checked in our bags, we headed to the priority security lane, where we only waited around 1 minute and were straight through, no problems. We then headed up towards the British Airways Business Class South Lounge. We have access to this through our status and through our Club Europe ticket. We prefer to use this one because the North Lounge is directly outside of security. We find that can be busier due to it being right there and people automatically just heading in there. We had just over an hour to spend in the lounge before our gate opened for our flight, so we decided to have a few drinks and something to eat. As usual, there was a great display of drinks on offer, and also, considering the time of the night, there was plenty of food to choose from. This was a Caesar salad station. They also had some pies, mash, some chicken curry, green beans, and some rice. When we first arrived at the lounge, it was on the busier side. However, as those flights departed, it really did quieten down, and it was a really nice, relaxing atmosphere. At 8:15, our gate opened, so it was time to head back down the escalators, ready to board our flight, which was taking off at 9:10 tonight. As we had gone to the South Lounge, we did have around a 5-minute walk back to the gate A13, which was on the other side of the terminal. We arrived at the gate and it was very quiet when we first got there, and pretty soon after they started to call the group numbers ready to board. We were group 1 on this flight and we were also seated in row 1 on the plane. We got into the pen and we were then held there for around 15 to 20 minutes whilst they called the other group numbers to come and join us in the queue. Now this did feel quite frustrating and unnecessary because we could have all just stayed sat down waiting before they were actually ready to board. It was finally time to board, so we headed down the jet bridge onto our British Airways Airbus A319 plane, which is actually 25 years old, so it is one of the older planes that they have. Prior to our flight from London Heathrow to Aberdeen, this plane had landed from a journey taken off from Milan Malpensa. On the plane, and it's seat 1A for me this evening, my partner is in seat 1C. He did want me to point out that as he was sat in the aisle, he was continuously knocked by 141 other passengers. This seat was fixed and structured as the tray table did have to come out of the armrest due to it being row 1. I'm also pointing out here that I am 5'1" for reference, and the legroom was a little bit minimal. I couldn't stretch my legs out the whole way, so going forward I probably would prefer row 2 as it does feel like it has more room. We're now pushing back from our stand at Terminal 5, ready for a short taxi to runway 09 right. Taxiing at Heathrow at night really is something else. The airport feels massive, it's lit up like its own little city and there's planes moving in every direction. We continued our taxi out onto the runway where the pilot informed us that we would have a brief wait due to congestion. This ended up being around 15 minutes in the end. Taking this time to reflect on our experience so far of this flight, when we boarded, the cabin crew were really friendly and helpful. It was also very clean on board, but that is just what you would expect from a British Airways Club Europe flight. I also just wanted to apologise about the blurriness of the clip. For some reason my phone just really couldn't adjust to the lighting outside, and yeah, it was just blurry and there's nothing I could have done about it. Enjoy the takeoff. Into a beautiful lit up London sky. Climbing out of Heathrow at night is always impressive. The city lights stretch out below, slowly fading as we climb higher until eventually we reach those clouds and that turbulence that we were warned about prior by the flight deck.
My name is David and it's my pleasure to be your in-flight manager on board this flight today. I'd like to welcome you all on board and extend a special welcome to those of you returning from the British Airways Club and those of you joining from our One World Alliance partners. May I remind you to keep your seatbelt fastened whenever you are seated, and it must remain securely fastened whenever the seatbelt sign is on.
Despite the bumpiness, service from the crew commenced pretty quickly after we took off, where I was served a glass of champagne and my partner had a cup of tea. We were also offered a light meal, but we did politely decline as we'd already eaten in the lounge and it was getting quite late. And after a short 1 hour and 10 minutes, it was time to land. Now, once again, excuse the blurriness of this clip, but it really doesn't take into account how bumpy this landing really was. And the pilot did an incredible job in landing in these conditions, so hats off to him. Touchdown in Aberdeen with a short taxi to our stand, and you can really feel the wind beating the plane here. As we approached the stand, we awaited the stairs to be joined onto the forward door, lined up next to a sea of other planes who were all shut down for the night, like ours was going to be too as well, until it flew back to London Heathrow tomorrow morning.
So there we have it. That was our travel day from London Heathrow to Aberdeen. We did have to cut the clip short after arriving at Aberdeen because we quickly discovered that there were no Ubers available and that there were no taxis in the taxi rank. So we were left with no option but to walk the 28-minute journey in 40-mile-an-hour winds to our hotel. But it is what it is. Two positives that we can take away from this situation were that on board, the cabin crew were excellent. They never left us without a drink, and we even managed to have 3 in such a short flight time of just an hour and 10 minutes. They also let us decline the meal choices, which was the watermelon salad and the salmon salad, and it's not really what we fancied at that time of night. And they did give us a packet of nuts and some biscuits as well. And the second positive point was that the pilot was very transparent about how difficult the landing might be due to said winds that we walked to the hotel in. He said it was going to be very bumpy and that we may not manage the landing first time, but he did do that. So that was a good point. The only negative experience we really had on this trip was when we were boarding the flight, they called up the group numbers and just sort of held everybody in a holding pen for about 15-20 minutes before we even started boarding. So that just felt a little bit unnecessary and we could have all just been sitting down waiting. But yeah, really, that's the only bad thing. So all in all, we had a great trip. And you might be thinking, why have you gone to Aberdeen on a holiday? Well, the main reason for this was because by the end of March, we would have only been a few tier points short of reaching BA Gold. And I know that there has been a lot of criticism about the new BA club changes. But due to the amount of trips that we've taken over the last year and have upcoming in the next year, we have managed to nearly achieve this goal, and we were only a few hundred points short. So we did take this trip, which meant that we could get 175 bonus tier points per person per leg of the journey, which will tip us over the edge by the end of the tier point collection year. So yeah, it does seem like a pretty strange place to go on a trip. But due to work commitments, it was close enough. The flight time was short and we're not too far away from home, so we can get back pretty easily. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. You know, there'll be plenty more of these to come. If you did like it, please subscribe and follow along for our next trip soon.